Hey everybody, it's good to see you. I hope that you're having a good week. I just wanted to give some announcements of things going on here at Woodridge and some things for you to look forward to. First, this Sunday, we have Hugh Poland is going to be preaching. It's kind of his first sermon as the discipleship pastor here at the church. And so I invite you to tune in. I would have invited you anyway, but I invite you to tune in and to listen to him. We also, in this time, have Matthew Bailey coming on board to be our interim worship leader here at the church. This Sunday, you're going to get to see Matthew and his wife, Lizzie Bailey, and their family leading worship for us. Lizzie, by the way, is a recording artist, and so I invite you to go on to Apple or to Spotify and check her out. It's a little bit of a different spelling. It's L-I-Z-I, so it's Lizzie Bailey. But Matthew's going to be the one that's going to be joining the Woodridge team in the interim time. There are even going to be a few weeks that Matthew had some previous commitments, and so we have Jack Thweet coming on board. And for those of you at Texas A&M, you probably know Jack because he's the leader of the Breakaway Band that meets on Tuesday nights. And so we're excited about what's coming up. So those are just a couple of announcements. Be keeping those things in mind. We look forward to worshiping with you and continuing to worship with you on Sunday mornings. But I also wanted to give you a devotional for the day. One of my favorite comedians is Jim Gaffigan. I think the guy's absolutely hilarious. He recorded something earlier today where he said, did you know that Shakespeare actually wrote King Lear when he was in isolation because of the plague? Well, that got me thinking because I've actually studied a little bit on Shakespeare as to whether or not that's true. I'm not going to get into the debate because scholars actually will go back and forth. Is that really what happened? What I found interesting is that some scholars think that Shakespeare did write King Lear in a time of isolation, but he didn't just write King Lear in a time of isolation. He may have also written Macbeth and as well as Antony and Cleopatra. Now, that's just crazy, and all because of a bubonic plague. We know Shakespeare as one of the greatest writers of all time, but he was a playwright, and so he was writing so that what he could be doing would be put on the stage. But because of the plague, what it's estimated is that the theaters were probably closed more than 60% of the time when he was at the height of his writing career. That's probably not what Shakespeare was hoping for. There's another guy named John Bunyan. Some of you may have heard of him, some of you maybe not. But John Bunyan was really known for being a great preacher. But as you might imagine, if you're saying some difficult things, people aren't exactly going to be fired up about what you're saying, and that would include the authorities of his time. John Bunyan was actually put in prison, and what I find interesting is I was looking in his story, Bunyan believed that even though he was in prison, that he was still supposed to be accomplishing something pretty amazing for the Lord. And while he was in prison, he turned that into a place of praise and celebration and worship. And it was even in prison where he wrote his famous work, The Pilgrim's Progress, which is considered to be one of the most famous allegories in the history of the English language. I give these simple examples just to say something to you. You might be in a season where your life is incredibly disrupted. And I know you're sitting there going, are you expecting me to write King Lear while I'm in isolation at home? Are you expecting me to write Antony and Cleopatra? And the answer is yes, that's exactly what I'm expecting. All right, probably not. But I don't want you to see this as a time where your life stops. It might be a time where God is doing something else. And it reminded me of the prophet Elijah. I was reading in 1 Kings chapter 17. God directs him to a brook. And in 1 Kings 17, 4-6, it says, you will drink from the brook, and I've directed the ravens to supply you with food there. People, that's got to be cool. So he did what the Lord had told him. He went to the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan, and he stayed there. And the ravens brought him bread and meat. I mean, what else do you need? Brought him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. So basically, Elijah has a catering service that is ravens, which is really interesting because they're unclean birds, at least according to the Old Testament. But God is providing for him. In essence, God says to Elijah, you need to get out of the spotlight and you need to be preparing for something that's coming up. When you think of Elijah is most famously known for encountering the prophets of Baal at Mount Carmel. That hasn't happened yet. This is 1 Kings 17. Mount Carmel is what's about to happen. And the wording I find pretty interesting. It says he went and he lived by the brook Kerith. It doesn't say that he went for a day and he isolated himself. Some scholars think he was there for months, maybe even up to a year, and then you turn around and he has this moment where he's confronting the prophets of Baal and he's revealing the glory of God as opposed to those that worship falsely. Maybe this is what God is doing for you. Maybe what God is doing is he's pausing your life a little bit in preparation for something really great. Or maybe, like you saw with Shakespeare and you saw with John Bunyan, maybe what's happening is God is pausing your life so that in the quiet you can accomplish great things. The bottom line is, a lot of times we only know what the Lord was doing in hindsight. What I'm convinced of is that God is doing something. So let's be good stewards of the opportunity. And let's not forget that maybe you're in a place you don't want to be. There's still opportunity for great accomplishment, great praise, and great celebration. Hope you have a great week, friends, and I hope to see you soon.